Hi everyone. No energy in the room. What happened here? End of the conference, Friday, end of day, nice lunch. Yeah. Weekend mode. But you have to, little more energy, no please? Hello. That's better. I like it. Alright, why are you all here today? I know why I am here. Why are you all here today? To listen to me speak. I can tell you a nice story and walk away from here. Why are you all here today? The session topic was very interesting. What was the topic for today? IC to manager. All right. How many ICs here? Everyone. All right. I know. Nowadays they are. Yeah, they are. Well. Welcome to the session. We are getting started a little early because I know energy is going to go down, and we want to catch you while we still have the energy. My name is Janet Rajan. As you all said, we are here for talking about shifting from an IC to manager role. And are you all familiar with design thinking? Some of you heard of it? Show of hands? Alright. So we're going to use a design thinking framework today to talk about how you might shift from IC to manager role. Okay? Some of you have got your notebooks out, which is great. This is a masterclass. So we will be sharing tidbits. Please take notes along the way. We'll have you do little activities as well. So we'd love for you to, have your pens and notebooks ready. It is a 1-hour session, which is very short for us. So we're going to keep going. We love our sessions to be interactive, but for the sake of time, we're going to keep going and we'll keep questions to the end. So if you have questions, please write them down through the session and we'll take time at the end to answer that. Does that sound okay? Yes. All right. So we will start quickly with introductions. My name is Janet Rajan. I am the founder of Growth Collective. I have here with me my partner Namita, who will step up and introduce herself. Some of you might have heard her speak yesterday at the panel. And as I see some familiar faces who had stopped by our booth also. Yeah, so I come with about 20 years, overall 24 years of experience. I'm feeling old in this room now, but 20 of that was spent in the corporate. I come, like most of you, from a technical background. I started off as a software engineer, grew into a product management role, worked across multiple startups in the BFSI space, in the insurance, e-commerce, AI, ML, all of that. And about 4 years ago, I quit and started a company called Growth Collective, where Namita joined me. And we now focus on leadership development across all levels for people like yourself, and we work closely with academia and organizations. If you haven't, I don't know, there's probably not as much time now, but we have a booth where we've just launched our first assessment, the first version of our leadership assessment, which helps you figure out your strengths and areas of development. If you have had a chance to do it, great. If you haven't, you can also ping us on LinkedIn. We'll be happy to send you the link and get started on that, and also help us test our product. So we would love that. So through my journey, I lived and worked in the US for about 15 years, which is where, and I studied at Harvard Business School, which is where I met my coach for the first time, who inspired me to do what I'm doing today, and that's why I'm here. I'll tell you more about it through our session. But through that journey, I've also gone through ups and downs of individual contributor to manager, and both Namita and I love sharing our stories, so you'll hear a lot of it. We will share all our faux pas because we made so many mistakes along the way, and we still make them because we're trying new things all the time, and the point is to encourage you all to make mistakes, learn from them, and keep going, right? All right, Namita, do you wanna? I am also a coach. Both Namita and I are strengths coaches. So we love working with people in helping them develop to the next level in their careers. And of course, we're building product on the side, so we dabble both hats whenever we can.
Thank you, Janet. Good afternoon, ladies and a couple of gentlemen. Oh my God. Good afternoon. Thank you. Oh, sure. Please, come in. We'll wait for like a second while we have the ladies come in. Woo, okay. That's a lot. Welcome. Come inside. Please come in. Sorry guys, just give us a minute. Have everybody comfortably seated or as comfortably as we can for today. Okay, fantastic to see so many people. I was told we have 40. This definitely looks a lot more than 40, but welcome. Alright, so a little bit about me. My background is a little different from Janet. Some of you have worked with me in the past. I'm an HR person. I used to, my last corporate career that I was a part of Target. I was director HR for them. I have about 20 years of experience in the corporate. I was in the US for a bit and I did my fellowship in talent management from Wharton School. I also started coaching women leaders when I was in the US. And that's where my passion for coaching came. Because I started to coach women leaders in the US who are different nationalities. American, obviously, so a lot of them. So Caucasian, African American, Korean, Hispanic. And what struck me was that even if you're a senior white woman, they all have the same challenges that a lot of us have. I had a senior director who was a senior white lady who sat in front of me and said, Namita, I'm not able to speak up in these meetings because, there's this gentleman who pushes me down and I'm just not able to speak up. And I was shocked. I was like, wow, really? You're so senior? You're American, you're Caucasian, and still if you have those kind of same challenges that a lot of us brown women have in India, then there's something to it, right? So that's when my passion for coaching women leaders come. At Growth Collective, I'll be honest, Janet and I do work that is gender neutral, right? So we work with men and women both, but I primarily coach women leaders. That's my passion. I also used to head diversity and inclusion for Deutsche Bank. So again, a lot of work with women leaders there. I'm passionate about psychology and how it meets neuroscience. So that's my latest passion. I'm certified in the StrengthsFinder, Hogan's, Belbin, DISC, all of that. But I promise I'm not here to psychoanalyze any of you. Like Janet and I said, we have a booth, so feel free to stop by. But today we're not psychoanalyzing any of you. So very excited to have all of you here, and back to Janet.
All right. Welcome to the newbies. All right. Shall we get started then? Ready to make that journey with me? Yeah? All right. So before we start, we always like to bring up this slide. This is a safe space to share. And at any point you feel like sharing, I would request all the others, no judgment for anyone, and speak up and ask questions, voice your thoughts, and you will realize that at least 10 other people in the room are going to have the same thoughts as you. I struggled to speak up when I was a kid as well, and see where I am now. So you can make that journey too, right? And you learn from each other as well. So whoever's sitting on next to you, feel free when you do, activities, feel free to chat with them whenever you feel like it might help. And bring your heart and mind to the room. As people who go into work, we tend to use our brains all the time, and we become very good at it. In leadership, a little bit of this is needed too, right? And so you want to find that balance between your heart and your mind as you make your leadership journey. All right. I'm going to start with this little quote. Leadership is not about fitting into a mold. It is not a leap. It is a crafted journey, right? Do you all, most of you, have an idea of what leadership looks like? Yeah? So everybody has this idea, and when we were at the booth yesterday, a lot of people were saying, when we were looking at their charts, or their strengths, a lot of women were coming up, and assertiveness was not very high for them. And all of them were telling us that, how can I be a leader if I'm not assertive, right? And how can I be a leader if I'm not decisive? So a lot of us believe that there are certain qualities which are a must-have in leadership. And if I don't have it already, I cannot be a leader. Not true. Not true at all. It is important. In certain situations, it is important, and it can be developed. if you don't have it now, there is always time to build it, right? Namita and me are still developing in our roles. We've been in the corporate so long, and now we are in entrepreneurship. Totally different challenges for us, right? And we need to learn all the time. So that journey never stops. So it is never a leap. Don't, if you're thinking that, hey, I'm doing such a stellar job at work and tomorrow I'm going to be able to get my promotion, that's not how it works. So today we're going to help you craft that journey. And to craft that journey, I want to start with something called the hero's journey. Have you all heard of this concept? It was sort of, in modern world, it came about by a psychologist called Joseph Campbell. Now, most stories in the world, almost all stories in the world, are based on the hero's journey. If you think of whether Greek mythology, whether the Ramayana, whether the Bible, whether Harry Potter, how many Harry Potter fans here? Yeah, many. So all their journeys sort of follow this route. But for today, I'm going to tell you mine. And so you see how, and while I'm going through mine, I want you to start thinking about how your journey has been so far and what are next steps you're going to take. Right? The first step here is called call to adventure. Now, call to adventure, what can that be? What do you think call to adventure is? Sort of getting started, right? What is my call to adventure? So maybe this session here is your call to adventure to that leadership role, right? And so I want you to think about what your call to adventure will be. For me, I was, like I told you, a software developer. I was this kid who would wear my headphones, sit at my desk, write excellent code, if I may say so myself at that time. And people loved me for my work, right? And I never thought I would ever become a leader because I was a pretty quiet kid. I always did what I was told to do, so all my bosses also loved me because whatever you tell me, I'll do it, right? But then one day I realized I have to do something more. And my journey was about maybe I should apply to a management program, right? And I shortlisted some colleges. I used to live in Boston at that time. And then I went to my manager and told him that, hey, I will need a reference from you. These are the colleges I've shortlisted. And he looked at the list, and if you all know, Harvard Business School is in Boston. I used to live 10 minutes away from it. And he looked at the list and he said, why is Harvard not on the list? And I started laughing. I said, Harvard, who will take me at Harvard, right? That was my response. And he said, I'm sorry, if you don't put Harvard on the list, I'm not writing you a reference. And I didn't know what to do, so I was like, okay, one more college, I'll just apply to it. And I did that, and when I got my acceptance letter, do you know what happened? I did not believe it. I kept getting up multiple times in the middle of the night, going and reading it again. Did this really happen? Did they make a mistake? Will I get a message tomorrow saying that I didn't get admission, right? Because of imposter syndrome, I didn't believe I was good enough, right? And when I walked in there, most people were very much more senior to me, from various nationalities. Of course, I was shitting bricks inside when I walked in, but over time, I realized that I was good enough. I could sort of, in terms of what I had here, it was good enough. Just that here, my heart was thumping most of the time. But I got through it, and I think I did very well for myself. And that was the transformation. That was my call to adventure, right? And after that, what was the obstacle that was getting in my way, right? I had this stereotype of leadership in my head that somebody has to be very outgoing, extremely outspoken to be a leader. I was not that person, right? And so I believed I'm never going to be a leader. And at Harvard is where I met my coach. She was the mentor who helped me, right? And I went to her in one of our coaching sessions. She asked me, and I told her, I don't think I'm ever going to go into a leadership role. And she said, why? I said, I am not the leader material. And she said, what is leader material? And I told her, and obviously she's like, no, Janet, you can lead with warmth and grace. And I started exploring that. I do lead with warmth and grace, but I've also become more assertive. I speak up more, and if you ask Namita, she will tell you stories about maybe I'm a little more assertive than I should be sometimes. So that's she doesn't agree, huh? So that transformation has happened, but it took about 10 years to get here, right? And it was a step-by-step process. So keep in mind that this is not going to happen overnight for any of us, right? And you need to take those small steps towards it. So that was my sort of tinkle in the head saying that I need to get started. The return, the transformation. I took small steps over a period of time. And at one time, there was this very interesting project that came in, and I was really good at my work, and I thought my manager would give me the project. He gave it to someone else, and I was heartbroken, right? After a few months, one more project came in and went to someone else. And this time I was like angry that why did he not give it to me? And I had a great relationship with my manager. So I walked into his office and I was like, what's going on? Am I not doing a good job at what I'm doing, right? And he says, why? So I said, you didn't give me that project. He's like, you wanted it? I said, yeah. He's like, Janet, I'm not a mind reader. And that was such an important lesson for me, because most of us do that. I'm doing a great job. My manager is seeing me do this, and so he or she should be giving me that promotion or giving me that project I want to work on. Nobody is a mind reader. If you want something, you need to ask for it, right? And that's when I started asking. The answer can be no at some time, but know that you need to ask for things, right? And that was my next learning in terms of transformation. Start taking small steps. Start asking for what you want, right? And the return. Now, I coach at the IIMs, which is equivalent to probably what Harvard was over there. Now I've come full circle, where I get to play my coach's role and tell other people exactly what someone told me and got me here, right? So that has been my hero's journey. I want you all to take 2-3 minutes to think about where you are on that journey. What is that trigger point for you that will help you get started? What are those lessons that you've been hearing but not really acting on, right? So does anything come to mind for you all? Have you started that journey? Are you sort of becoming a leader now, still an individual contributor? Where are you? Struggling with challenges in terms of leadership? Obstacles, you're in that obstacles path right now. So today, yeah.
There is one circle or part in the journey probably which is not there, but there for me is
Yeah.
the part where it's a plateau, there's nothing happening.
Yeah. Very true.
No transformation.
That's the sign to make something happen. Shake up your universe. So sometimes we wait and hope that something will happen. Hope is not a strategy. You cannot be waiting and hoping, right? And sometimes we want the world to show a sign. This is your sign. Do something about nothing happening, right? Whatever that might be. Take a class, you've come here. You've come to a networking event. See what other people are doing, right? So make sure that you keep doing things. You may fail. We all have failed, right? Like I failed. I didn't get a project because I didn't ask for it, right? So think about that. How do you make things happen for yourself? If you want to make it happen, then the universe will. So today as an entrepreneur, I can tell you that both Namita and I put ourselves out there all the time. And sometimes things just happen, right? And you're like, oh, we got lucky. But then we realize that there's months of hard work which probably led to that luck somewhere, right? So start putting in that effort, shake things up in your universe, right? Fail, learn from it. That's how it's going to be, all right? So we're going to use the design thinking framework to walk through your transformation today, right? Design thinking has 5 steps. If for those of you who don't know it, the first step being empathy. People know what empathy means?
Yes.
All right. Today we are going to empathize with ourselves. You want to look inwards and think about where am I? Who am I? That self-awareness is going to come with empathy towards yourself, right? Define is the second step of the design thinking process. Design thinking can, it can be used to build products, change processes. Great companies like Netflix, all of them, Netflix is a great product and they use design thinking to build it. Why we start with empathy is because it gives us a great understanding of the people that we are building the product for. Today you're building your own journey. You are the person the product is being built for. So start thinking about where am I in my journey, right? Then based on that, we want to put together, define the challenges that you're having, right? And each person's challenge will be different. Like she said, her challenge is a plateau right now. And a lot of you may be at different stages in that challenge. And you want to write down what that challenge will be for you. Ideation is where you're going to think of how might I solve that problem, right? What are some problems that sort of ideas I can put into play? And what does prototype and test mean? How many tech folks here? Lots of you. What does prototype and test mean? Yes, sort of prototype, experimenting, getting feedback and then getting better at it, right? Improving that product, which today is you. Sorry? Proof of concept, right? So you have to do a proof of concept even with your leadership. Am I good at this? Let me try this. What have I not tried so far, right? So that's what we are going to do with prototyping and testing. Sounds good? All right, Namita, you're on. Start with empathy.
What is empathy? And is it different or is it same as compassion? What do you think? It's different. Okay, how is it different? Absolutely. Beautiful definition. Compassion is you feel sorry. Empathy, you it's not about feeling sorry. It's about really literally walking a mile in that person's shoes. And I'm going to take two different examples. One, how do you empathize with others, right? And two, how do we empathize with ourselves, right? Others, I have a little daughter. Her name is Anika. She is about 9 years old. And this happened a couple of years ago. She was 7. She's like a little baby monkey. She loves climbing. She's always on top of something. So there was a park that, that's in my community, and they'd installed these bars. And she and her little friends would always climb up, and they're pretty high. They're about 6 feet high, and they'd climb up, they'd climb up and sit on top of those bars. And I saw her a couple of times, and I'm like, oh my God, poor thing. What if she falls down? It's just mud. There's no, soft landing. So we probably need to do something. So I'm in the community, and I'm like, hey, you need to get some get some sand so it's easier for the kids, right? If they fall, nothing's going to happen. I have my mommy hat on. And they did that, it took a long time, and they said, we got the finest quality sand and whatever sand, and we got sand. And every day you'd see all these little girls sitting up and, twittering like little birds. And next day I came and it was empty, not a single child up. Second day I came, there's again not a single child up. And I was like, that's surprising. I mean, they're always there. So I, that day I called Anika and I'm like, hey, what happened, baby? You're not sitting up there. And she's like, Mama, you ruined it. And I'm like, whoa, how did I ruin it? She's very, very upset with me. And she's like, Mama, before we just climb, right? Now there's sand there. So when we stand on the sand and then try to climb a pole, their legs slip. And these are little girls, right? So they need all the traction they can't, and they cannot climb that anymore. So I've basically rendered it absolutely useless. It's still useless to date, so don't ask me. I've clearly not fixed it. I broke it. Because, I felt sorry for her. I'm like, oh, poor thing. But I did not walk a mile in her shoes. I don't know what it was to climb that pole because, hey, I'm not at an age that I can climb it. So no way. Right? So that's empathy for someone else. Now, Janet spoke to you about the booth that we have, right? We've had about maybe 150, 200 people who've walked in. Largely women like you, a lot of youngsters have come in and taken our assessment. And guess what is the top strength that most of them have? Empathy. Do you think it's empathy for others or ourselves? Others. Thank you. And every single one of them came to me and said, I'm so tired because I am so busy doing stuff for others. Right? So I invite you today to take some time out for yourself. The first person that I want you to walk a mile in your own shoes and empathize. And I'll tell you why that's important. Ma'am, may I know your name, please? Reshma. So let's say Reshma here, right? She's giving me a lovely, cheerful smile. Normally she's a happy person, but let's say she's got an important meeting in office. She used to go to office. And that day, she's wearing a beautiful white shirt. She spills coffee on it. Right? Now she has to go change. She has to run, find something else. She wears something. And then she goes. And then, because you missed the sweet spot, we get stuck in what? Traffic. And then somebody bumps her, right? She's in an auto or she's in a bike and somebody bumps her. She loses half an hour. She reaches office. She's frazzled. And ma'am, your name, ma'am? Supriya. Now, Supriya, I'm sure, is a lovely young lady. But she walks up to Reshma and like, hey, Reshma, this is not working. You think Reshma's going to be very happy then? She's going to snap at poor Supriya. Like, come on, man, you can't even do this. Like, right? Happens to all of us, right? So I invite you in those moments to take a moment for yourself. Empathize with yourself. Stop. Take a deep breath. We've all been there, right? But we don't want to experience what Supriya has experienced that day clearly. All right. So very quickly, what do you think self-awareness is, folks? What is self-awareness? Knowing your strengths. Absolutely. Good job, Janet. They know it all. Very good. Right? All right. So self-awareness is an idea to sense how you're coming across, have visibility into your strengths and weaknesses, and also gauge the emotions we're experiencing. If Reshma's having a bad day, Reshma needs to take a deep breath and say, okay, I'm having a bad day. It's okay, it'll get better. Take a minute. But also, right, understand what are your strengths and weaknesses. Know that, when you're moving from an IC to a manager, one of the biggest things that is going to, kind of push you up the momentum is trying to understand what is your distinctive strength. What is it that you do so well in your sphere that other people don't, right? And how can you make that match with the need that the organization has? That's when you kind of power up, right? So make sure that you spend some time introspecting, right? And think about it two ways. Now you're going to manage people, right? So I love this quote. It says, before you are the boss of others, you have to be the boss of yourself. Brilliant, right? So how will you figure out who are you as a person, right? And as you move forward, identity, I want to invite you to think of two things: identity and perception. Any idea what that is? What do you think identity is? I'm going to ask this team here. They're all standing. I'm so sorry, ladies. Who we truly are, okay? And how we look at ourselves. What is perception? Guys here. Oh, everybody knows about perception. Well done. All right. Now, if you attended my panel, you'll know that I spoke about I love talking. It's already glaring because I'm talking a lot, as always. I was a very outstanding child in school. Okay? I was always kicked out of the class for talking. Right? So my identity is like, hey, I talk because I want to know more about people and, I want to be chatty. I want to, get to know the person. But perception could be Namita is very talkative. She's just talking. I don't know what she talks. Right? I'm not a good listener. Right? So just make sure that as you grow into a leadership world, your self-awareness is highest when your identity is closest to the perception people have about you. Right?
Can you repeat that?
Yeah. Your self-awareness is highest when your identity is closest to perception that people have about you. Right? So if they are vastly different, Namita thinks I'm highly entertaining. People are like, she's just talking. Mismatch? Right? So she's like, nice, yeah, absolutely, I totally agree. Sorry, people.
Thank you for saying nice, whoever said it.
Thank you, Janet. All right, sorry. Was it a question?
I also want to share how do we do that? How do we bridge the gap between identity and purpose?
Not today, I'm afraid, but we'll go through a little bit. I'd love for you to come by our stall. We're in Hall 3, Stall 14. We're doing a little bit of work around the strengths and areas of development. Thank you.
One small doubt.
Yeah.
So you said that perception should match our identity, but is perception also subjective on how people, have their own prejudices?
It does. Here's the thing, you can only control your own behavior. But then once I get to know that, hey, people feel that Namita talks a lot, can I pull myself back a bit? Can I ask more questions? Can I hold space for others? That I can. Right? So it's good to ask people around you sometimes about, what they think. But also, I would say, starting point for me would be to invest in any assessment. It could be a Gallup Strengths Finder. It could be via Strengths, right? But any assessment that will kind of help you. It could be even our Strengths, the one that we put up in Hall 3, right? So feel free. But I guess to just say that first reflect on yourself before you go to others. Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to walk you through what we call a career compass. I hope all of us have a paper pen. Most of us have paper pen. Sorry, we ladies who are standing, we'll try and see how best we can do this with you, right? I want to take some time to quickly walk you through what we're calling a career compass, right? So we're going to put down what you know, right? So what you know is knowledge. So it could be core product knowledge, it could be technically skilled in Java. For someone like me, right, I'm very I'm good in HR, so it's obviously performance management, talent management, now it's coaching frameworks, it's leadership frameworks, right? What have you done? So obviously because of this, I've led a team of engineers, I've held project management responsibility. These are my experiences that I have, right? Behavioral is who you are. And this is going to be interesting. I'm sure the other three you'll fill up immediately, right? Spend some time, a little bit time thinking about what is behavioral. For instance, enjoy being responsible for achieving difficult targets, right? Continuous learning. And this is where you'll start to see things change, right? As an IC, What was your goal? Do your job, do it as well as you can. Now it's going to change. So I want you to reflect on what is it in who you are that's going to propel you as you take on management responsibilities, right? Competencies, right? So for instance, behavioral, I enjoy reading up, right? I enjoy reading a lot. I used to enjoy science fiction. I used to enjoy thriller, murder mysteries. The more number of people who get killed, the more thrilled I am, right? So I could devour any number of, any number of books really. But when Janet and I moved into coaching and development, my target audience changed. I suddenly had to talk to CEOs. I just suddenly had to talk to CFOs. I stopped even reading the papers because after COVID, I got very worried. Everything is full of bad news. I stopped reading the papers. I'm not in touch with business news. Now, how do I go and talk to a CEO if I don't even, understand what's happening in the world? I started small, right? So I said, okay, I love spending time with my husband. He's super well read. So I said, okay, every morning can I get up a little earlier and have coffee with him and read the newspaper? He has coffee, I have green tea, that's another matter. But can I just spend that 5 minutes with him? He reads, I also read the newspaper. So at least because, I know I need to spend that time, at least get up and start reading the paper. 10 minutes every day, I can do that. I started with that. Then I said, okay, now I know what's happening in India. Let me see what's happening in the business context. So I subscribe to a journal called The Ken. They're very good. If you want business news, I would highly recommend. Take the free version. They have enough stuff there. So I started reading The Ken for 10 minutes. And then I said, okay, now that I know what's happening in India, let's figure out what's happening in the US because so much work happens in the US. I started reading the news, the New York Times. There you get an online free version again. Then I started reading The Economist because that gives you a global view. And then I started to go deeper. I said, okay, once a week, instead of reading about how somebody killed 10 other people, can I read something related to business? Can I read something related to psychology? Yes, I can. Once a week I can. Yeah. Start small. I started reading that. And now, before any session, I read a couple of books. I make sure they're not murder mysteries, I assure you. Nobody dies in them. Right? But I find them interesting. I find them enriching. I read books on neuroscience. I read books on psychology. I find it immensely interesting. Now the problem is when I meet somebody, I'm like, let me tell you about what I read. And Janet's like, no, just stop. Let's talk about the topic. Right? So that's why I want to talk about that is the change in behavior that I made personally when I shifted from, my corporate to this. And what can you do now? Because of all of this, I enjoy meeting people, I enjoy connecting, I can facilitate, I can train, I can coach. So because of all these three, what is it that you can do? Right? So I invite you to spend a couple of minutes just listing out your profile. And I want you to focus on behaviors that you think you have that can propel you when you go to management. Right now, it's not about doing yourself. It's about getting somebody else to do. And trust me, that is 100 times more difficult. Take a minute. Yes, please. Yeah.
Even receiving feedback is very hard sometimes, right? So how do you make that better? Right? So setting yourself up, so because we all want that promotion, we want to go into that leadership role, but have we set ourselves up for success? Yeah, have we set ourselves up for success? Because most of us till date get promoted because we are very good at our job, which is coding. And suddenly we are expected to be very good as a leader when we get pushed into that role. And we are not set up for success for that, right? And that's when we start failing and we lose confidence in terms of, oh, I'm not a good leader, right? But nobody is, there might be some people who are born good leaders, but you can develop that, right? And that's what we want you to start thinking about in terms of competencies. What do you need? And it can be different for each of us. Like she said, for her, it is to be able to listen more, right? For me, it is, I'm great at giving feedback, but I'm very direct, which my team struggles with.
She's extremely direct. So if she will pick up the phone and tell you, Namita, this sucks.
I don't.
Yes, she does. She'll tell you, this
So
is
there,
rubbish.
right.
Okay, and you know how I will tell her, hey Janet, if she tells me something, hey Janet, this is wonderful. Thank you so much for putting in all this effort. By the way, this small thing, maybe perhaps you can correct, but thank you so much, it was wonderful. What do you think Janet heard?
She must have heard that.
It's
She
perfect.
didn't hear that. She didn't hear exactly. Like, oh, everything's fine. Then you come back exactly. I'm saying, Janet didn't take my feedback. Look at this, right?
But now I have to actually work on being a little subtle with my feedback, right? So So that is because I sort of grew up in America. Everybody's very direct over there. And in the Indian context, it needs to shift. So that learning is never going to stop, right? And you need to keep assessing where you are behaviorally and take it forward.
But also, when I work with Janet, now I know that I need to give feedback directly. And again, like Janet said, a lot of our team members are not going to be mind readers, right? So one framework, how many of us struggle with giving difficult feedback? I mean, I struggle. Fantastic. Okay, a lot of us. Okay, so you're in the same boat as me. You're not like in Janet's boat. Sorry, Janet. All right. So a fantastic framework that I use. It's called Radical Candor, right? It's by a lady called Kim Scott, and she speaks of this framework which says, how do you care personally but challenge directly? Right? Some of you are nodding, so I'm guessing you've heard of Radical Candor. It's a beautiful framework. I've used it personally because it really helps someone like me, because I'm like, oh, I cannot be a bad person. My God, I'm so good. But really, I'm not helping the other person, right? I'm not helping Janet because I could have given her feedback that would have benefited her, but I didn't because I was so busy being like, oh, I don't want to be the bad guy, right? So use Radical Candor. So care personally is, for instance, let's see, ma'am, your name? Bhumika. All right. So let's say I just walk up to Bhumika and tell her exactly what Janet told me. Bhumika, this sucks. Bhumika is already telling me like, how could you say that, right? And obviously because I don't have a relationship or a rapport with Bhumika. But let's say now I have, one of our team members here, right? Say hi, Veda. Right? So let's say I walk up to Veda and I'm like, hey Veda, this sucks, right? And but can we make this better? Now Veda and I have worked for a bit. I have a rapport with her. Veda knows that I care personally for her. So I've taken that time. She'll take that feedback a little better, right? I also take some time to ask her, hey Veda, how was your day? Let's say I know that, maybe her cat or dog was not well. I'm like, hey, is your cat or dog okay? Are things okay? I take some time, I build some rapport, and then I share feedback. Veda, do you feel better if I do that? Or will I just feel better if I just come and say, this sucks, right? So how do you care personally, right? And care personally in the sense that you have a relationship and rapport. I cannot establish a relationship and rapport with Bhumika in all of like 10 seconds. I can't do that. It's going to take me time. It's going to take me effort and energy that I invest in building a relationship with Bhumika, like the way I have with Veda. So obviously Veda is going to be a lot more receptive to what I share, right? So for those of you who struggle with this, please know that Radical Candor is a fantastic framework for you guys to use. I'll leave you with one thought here before I move on. um, like I said, I read a little bit of psychology, and psychologists will tell you that you are who you are as a result of your childhood, your parents, your environment, the way that you've perceived and experienced your environment. And the similar way in the corporate also, you are who you are because of the way that you've experienced your early managers, right? Your first set of teams that you worked with. And now as you move to senior roles, know that a lot of us consciously or subconsciously will be keeping those leaders in mind. If they were good, fantastic. If not, think about what not to do, right? But just know that your corporate persona is built on everything that you've experienced, but you have a chance to rewrite that and say, what is it that you want to kind of, work on? Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay. Again, like I said, right, I would say build a relationship and rapport. Janet keeps talking about this. She always talks about intent, right? So does the person know what your intent is, right? Are you genuinely seeking to make that person better? How do you make that person better? For example, there's a short video that Adam Grant has done on this. Adam Grant, if those of you follow management gurus, he's a fantastic guru, and he speaks about how do you tell the person that, hey, I believe in you, right? I think you can do great work. This is an example where perhaps you can do better. And let me share what it is and ask them, how can I support you? How can I help? Right? So whenever I had to stand up with my teams, three things I would ask: what's going well, what could be better, and how can I help? Three simple things. Yes, ma'am. Sorry, we're going to take one last question, then we're going to move because we're super short on time. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I understand. Absolutely. Now, if you look at Janet here, right? If you look at me, we were actually very different people, right? So Janet is obviously very direct.
I am a people person. I love people. I'll go build a rapport. Now, Janet was known to be one of the most beloved leaders in her floor, right? And people would be like, "Oh, we love Janet," and I'd be really confused. There were 100 people on that floor, and all of them would come. And I was HR, and she was in business. They'll all come and tell me, "We love Janet," and I'm like, "She must be super social. I'm sure she spends her entire time talking to everybody." What I realized much later is that Janet had a schedule every quarter that she would put, which said, "I will have coffee with these two people. I would mentor these three people. I will take these three people for lunch. I will have deeper conversations with these." So she had plotted the entire thing out. And I would say, you need to be intentional about it. You need to plot and say, okay, which stakeholder needs how much time? Every stakeholder does not need the same amount of time. If you have a direct report who is a lot more senior, and there's somebody who's a lot more junior. Initially, I didn't know I would give everybody the same amount of time, but that's not true. You don't need to do that, right? So how do you sort of balance it out? Thank you. Thank you so much. Sorry, we're going to run a little bit. And yes, back to you, Janet.
All right, finally she said something nice about me. I was worried there. So
I love you, Janet.
I know. So but that the radical candor, please go for it. That's a format that I use. And what she was talking about, that intent and behavior. When people are mostly well intended, our behavior can show differently. So always know, even when somebody is giving you feedback, their behavior or their words may be hurtful. Think about their intention, right? And that's when you will start making full use of it for yourself, right? And I love this. Like she said, I'm very intentional about building trust with people, because that enables me to be direct in my feedback, where people know that I'm coming from a good intention. I want them to do better, right? And I think those kind of leaders sort of sit well with the team. So think about your leadership style, the leaders that you've seen, and how you might take it forward. All right, now we've come to the define phase. The define phase is about defining what challenges you're going through, right? So now we've talked a little bit, you've looked at the behaviors, you've sort of maybe thought about your own behaviors in this case and what you want to change. Now I'm going to introduce you to the circles of control. If anything in this world has made me successful at what I do, it is this. I believe the buck stops with me, right? I never wait for other people to do things for me or to get things done, because I try to control whatever I can control, right? Now, when we look at these three circles, here is the circle of control, that is the circle of influence, and that is the circle of concern. What do you think these mean? What is circle of control? Whatever we can control, right? I can control this right now because I have it with me. What is circle of influence? Yeah. What am I trying to do here? I'm trying to influence you. All right, you got it. What is circle of concern? My God, it's going to rain today. Can't control it, right? Can't control it, right? Yeah. When we go for sessions and people tell me I'm late because of traffic, you can't control it, but can you prep for it, right? So those are things that you want to think about. So whenever you're thinking of a task, you need to figure out which of these circles it's going to sit in, right? And so what you need to do is, you've probably identified certain behaviors in terms of what it is. Once you've identified the behaviors, think about which circle does it go into, right? Once you put it in the circle, you want to prioritize this circle. Why are we prioritizing this circle? Circle of control. That's the one that you can control. What is the one thing in the whole world that you can control? Yourself. We come back and you guys know it all. See, the thing, and this is Namita's favorite dialogue, which is there is a difference between thinking and doing. We know we can control our behavior, but we will still blame someone else. My manager said this to me, yeah, what is this? But we won't speak up in the meeting, right? But we will blame the manager at that time, right? So if you didn't speak up, whose fault is it? Not fault, but whose challenge is it to work with, right? Yours. Your manager can take you into the room, you need to start speaking up, right? And it's okay if you, what is the safest thing that you can talk about, right? So like Namita and I are big proponents of tiny habits. Start taking those small steps towards it, of what can you control, what can you bring in here, right? Now influence, Well, who can you influence at work? People who report into you, teammates, even your manager. Actually, you can, right? Are you having those conversations? Or you're expecting your manager to be a mind reader like I expected mine to be? Sometimes we do that, right? My manager knows what work I'm doing. How can he or she not see this, right? But keep in mind, who is the one person who's who sort of, we think that, no, I'm going to frame it differently. We think that everybody else is thinking about us, but nobody is thinking about you. Nobody is thinking about me, right? The only person who should be thinking about you is you. When you start prioritizing that, things will start shifting, right? So I want you to take whatever challenges you wrote, think about which box are they going into, and you want to shift it into the circle of control in the best way possible. The next step is the circle of influence. It's okay if it's there, but what are steps you can start taking towards making that influence? Do you need to set that one-on-one with your manager to say that, hey, I'm looking to get to the next role, how do I get there? Can you help identify steps for me over there? Or I am struggling with maybe managing a particular stakeholder. I don't want to pass it on to you. Can you help me figure out how do I do this better? Right? So owning the problem statement, but getting help, right? So think about the three circles. Take a minute. Have you all figured out which circle what goes into? Comfortable with that? So I'm going to show you a few sentences here. Managing personal time to prepare for leadership responsibilities. Which circle? Control. I can control my time. Very often most people will come and tell me, and when we coach a sort of mid senior level managers, right? And at that level they want to be more strategic, but we're very caught in the day to day, and they'll keep telling me, we don't have time, there's so much going on every day. Who's supposed to make that time for you? Ourselves. I was like, take 2 hours a week. And if you can't make 2 hours a week, then you're not prioritizing that need, right? So you need to start prioritizing the fact that you want to become a leader. Only then others will start seeing the difference, right? So whether, like Namita said, once a week reading, whatever that might be, do it minimally, but start doing it, right? Let's look at this. Organizational policies for promotions and leadership pathways. Which circle? Can you influence it? Concern. Yeah. So you have to have an understanding of what is the policy in my company, right? And does that work for me? Do I align with it? If I understand the policy, only then can I start making changes in my actions towards that, right? So you have to have a good understanding of that. Now, external market or industry changes impacting career progression. You can influence that? No? Concern. Correct. You're right. You're all right. So yeah, we can't do anything about it, right? A lot of companies are going through layoffs. A lot of bad things are also happening out there. And who knows when it happens to us, right? You have to be well prepared because you should expect it with the way the market is going. So what are you doing to make sure that if anything happens, are you well prepared for it or not, right? Practicing clear communication with peers and superiors. Control, yes. And this is a challenge for a lot of young people, a lot of young women. We struggle to speak up. We are not assertive, right? And you need to think about, what is that one meeting that I can go to and start speaking up? Prep before you go, right? When yeah, like I told you, I come from a tech product background. When I started doing this, I was not great at this, right? And when we started, COVID just hit, and I was doing sessions online. And one day I watched the recording of my session, right? And I was sitting in front of it, the camera, and I was obviously seeing myself do that. And I was looking here, looking there, talking to the wall because I couldn't see anybody on the screen. That time, all the tools hadn't come up. And I was like, my God, who's going to pay attention to what I'm saying? Because I'm not even looking at people while doing it, right? And I was thinking in between and talking, very, very randomly. I actually had to put a post-it next to the camera hole which said, look here, so that even when I'm talking, my attention would keep going back there till it became a habit, right? Because I would wander away again and then I would come back. I should smile more, right? So because in person it's easier to build connect, but on online I couldn't, so I need to smile more. Namita, as you can see, she's always smiling and I don't. So I have to remind myself that smile more, Janet, right? And these might be little things, but for a session it is impactful if the person comes across as warm and friendly, right? So those were little changes I needed to start making in my communication, right? What are things that you need to change? Who is that one person that you can start making those changes with? Where is that one meeting? So start small, and keep in mind that if you say that tomorrow onwards I'm going to become assertive, is it going to happen? If you say that, okay, 2 months down the line I'm going to be very assertive, is it going to happen? Possibly, but what are the steps you're taking to become assertive? That is what is important, right? Most of us decide that I want to become this, but what are we doing to become that is what is important. So identify that meeting, identify that person, that with this person I'm going to start becoming a little more assertive, right? Demonstrating accountability and initiative to gain trust from stakeholders. Influence, very good, right? How are you demonstrating that? How are stakeholders noticing you? Keep in mind that we can be very good at our work, but there's so many of us, right? How will people recognize us? Showcasing your work is also important, right? And you can do it with humility. It doesn't mean, like, very often we feel that, oh, that person is showing off a little bit, right? I can see some of you grinning over there, right? And that happens. That happens. And you can do it in a different, in a style that is meaningful for you, and you need to figure that out, right? But it is important so that other people start noticing you. Seeking mentorship or feedback from current leaders. Control. And are you doing that, right? We feel scared of feedback. Do you think giving feedback is easy? So when you're going into the room, know that the other person is struggling too, right? So both of you need to give each other empathy, right? So go in with empathy when you're, but seek feedback, right? So think about these things and figure out what can you start controlling towards the steps in your leadership, right? Now, I'm going to, the insights that you've got, I'm going to call them insights. The insights may be that today I'm an expert in what I do, I'm able to deliver independently. I also know that as a leader, I need to be able to motivate and support a team, for which I'm not well equipped, maybe, right? So, what is the insight that came from your list of things, right? And what is the challenge for you? Convert that into challenge statements. My challenge statements might be, I struggle with giving constructive feedback. My challenge statement may be, I struggle with sharing ideas with stakeholders or setting a vision for the team. I'm able to think small, but I'm not able to think big, which is what is needed for a leader. So I want you to get to a point where you have been able to identify a challenge statement for yourself. Make sense? You good with me till here? All right. All right. Namita, you're on.
All right. So we move to the next step, which is ideate, right? Ideation thrives on creativity. Ideation thrives on, first of all, not being judgmental about ourselves, right? Sometimes we have so many ideas, and the first thing that we do is really judge ourselves, right? That's what we start to do. And today, I want to ask you a question before we get into this, right? How many of us think that you can increase IQ? Raise your hand if you think IQ can be increased. Hmm. Okay. Mixed response. IQ? Yeah. How many of us think that EQ can be increased? Okay, so a lot of us think that EQ can be increased but not IQ. Ouch. Okay, so research, not me, not Namita Koti, not Janet Rajan, research has shared that IQ and EQ both can actually be increased, right? And that term that talks about this is called the growth mindset. It's a beautiful book called Mindset by this author called Carol Dweck. I would highly recommend that you read it because it talks about how do you, in the face of adversity, move forward, right? And she came across this concept of growth mindset in a very interesting way. She said they were doing research on little kids. They were given puzzles, right? And they were asked to solve. And the puzzles became increasingly difficult. And what she saw is that there were one group of children who, as the puzzles became more and more difficult, started to think, wow. And they actually said, wow, I'm learning something. This is exciting. And the little kids, they're sweating, the little kids, but they're getting more and more excited. And that's what we need to try and see, right? So if you want to ideate, look at it from a growth mindset, try and see what are the challenges that life is throwing at you and reflect back. All of us talked about the hero's journey, right? You saw what challenges Janet had, right? And all of us, which of us has, okay, is there somebody in this room who has not had a challenge? Please raise their hand. No, right? Have you, if you're all sitting here, you've all overcome those challenges? right? You've come out stronger, right? You've all come out stronger. And that's what I want you to remind yourself, right? So that exactly is a growth mindset. That's what we're talking about, right? How do you, in the face of challenges, push yourself to say that, what can I learn from this, right? So we're looking at how do you first, really look at judgment free zone. And here's the thing, some of us, we're starting up, right? We might think that, oh my God, I'm so new here. I don't know what I can do that, other people might not have already thought of. How many of us have thought that? Let me not give an idea because I am so young, I am so new, nobody's going to pay attention. Yeah, all of us have? Fantastic. But sometimes ideas come from the most unlikely sources. I have a little girl, Anika. So this was when she was about maybe 7 years old. We had our first, event that we were going for. It was the first event after COVID, just after COVID. We just started a brand new company, and we had an outdoor event for which we needed blindfolds, And last minute, we'd ordered it on Amazon. It didn't come. And we were really panicking, and this was before Blinkit and Zepto and all these zippy things that come through a while before that. So we were panicking. We're like, my God, we have this activity for this huge MNC. It was actually Microsoft, and we don't have blindfolds. What are we going to do? And then my daughter walks in and she's like, hey, mommy, look at these masks. She just folded it, put it on her eyes, and she's like, I can't see anything. Why can't you use the masks? And we looked at her and we're like, wow, we actually didn't think of that. And we didn't, right? So sometimes ideas come from the most unlikely sources. It's called a beginner's mindset, if you're interested in a technical term, right? But how do you just make sure that you kind of look to kind of, make sure that you share your ideas? There's nothing like a bad idea. Hey, there are always bad ideas. But how do you not refrain from sharing your ideas just because you're new to this role, right? So, okay. This is going to be a familiar one for some people, where we say, sometimes we feel that the world is against us. All the chips are stacked against us. Yeah. And I'm going to give you my own story. I was much younger, right? And I had a leader who I would be in office till about 8 o'clock every single day. And I'd come home and I just needed like half an hour breather to be with my daughter. And she would call me, I had a half an hour time slot with my daughter, 8 to 8:30. And every day she'd call me at that time. She'd call me on a Saturday. She'd call me on a Sunday. She'll call me every festival. You can be sure she called me. And I'd burn out. I'm like, oh my God, I can't, take my mind off work. I am struggling. Woe is me. I cannot do this. And I quit. I quit my job. It was a fantastic job. There's nothing wrong with it, but I quit. Fast forward, my next job. And I had a leader who would, there were three of us in the team, but I would get all the extra stuff to do. Any new project, Namita would get it. Anything exciting, Namita would get it. Hey, it's exciting, but I would keep taking it and keep taking it. And then I burnt out. And it was a great job. But again, I thought, my God, I can't do this. My boss is always putting stuff on me. And what do you think I did? I quit. I'm like, woe is me. Everybody's against me. My bosses are just, they just put everything on me. Who do you think was at fault here, really? Namita, thank you. Madhavi is very clear. She's like, Namita, this is your fault. And she's right. But you know what? It took me 4 years to realize that. It took me 4 years of working on myself, coaching myself to really realize that they were not at fault. In the first case, I needed to draw boundaries and say, hey, you know what? This time to this time, I need to spend with my child. Can I speak before? Can I speak after? She would have been fine with it, right? In the second chance, I need to have said, hey, I have, 20 things on my plate. Can we prioritize? My boss wasn't a boss. Yeah. Okay, all right, sure. Right. So, how do we really look at saying, how do we focus from victim mindset to victor mindset, right? So, quick couple of examples on this. Victim, I can't do anything about this. Victor, how do I improve this situation? Victim, blame others. The boss is always wrong. Newsflash, you are the boss now. Yeah, that's a change. Right? So how do you own their actions and their consequences? Victim dwells on responsibilities. Victor, look for actionable solutions. Victim, how do you wait for change to happen? Versus victor, how do you take proactive steps for change? Right? Right? Okay, we'll do a couple here because we're running slightly short on time. A few examples that we've taken. It's easier to do everything myself. I can't trust others to deliver same quality. Victim. Okay.
Now, how do you change this? Oh, very good. Right? I need to start delegating small tasks. Let me tell you, this is going to be one of your biggest challenges. A reason that I burnt out the second time was, do you think I delegated the second time around? Everything Namita will do. They gave it to Namita, Namita has to do it. I would stay up till 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock doing it myself. My team was like, give it to us. I'm like, no, 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 I will do it myself. I don't think you can do the same quality. Of course they could. All right. I'm never given any opportunities to prove myself. Victim, how do we change this? Very good. Ask. They're not a mind reader. Your boss is not a mind reader. Okay? I need to find ways to advocate for myself and create opportunities. Put up your hands and say, can I do this? I rarely get feedback, so I don't know what to improve. Very good. Tomorrow, all of you are going to ask for feedback. No, I'm so proud of you girls. Woo! Right? But how do you proactively ask for feedback, right? And I'm just not lucky when it comes to promotions. Victim. What? Is it just ask? What else can you do? Work towards it. What else can you do? Be assertive, yes. Showcase also, right? Work towards it. Showcase your skill sets, right? Okay. And now let's say we all spoke about how do you reframe. I want you to think about the challenge that you thought about, right? In the hero's journey, we talked about a challenge. And look at it to how might I? For instance, how might I balance technical expertise with leadership responsibilities? Right? This could be a potential challenge. How might I build confidence in sharing my ideas with stakeholders? Right? So take a minute and look at the challenge, and I want you to think about framing it in how might I? All of us spoke about challenges. Just take a minute. You can write it down. You can type it out. I see some of you are taking photos.
Okay, so this is for you guys to think about the questions that you need to answer yourself, right? The victim to victor, I saw that you all did really well. But again, saying and doing, right? So think about what you're doing about it, right? So think about the doing. And if it is harder, break it down into steps. How might I, right? How might I share ideas with stakeholders? What is step one? That one person, I'm going to go and have a one on one meeting with them. That one meeting that I go to, I'm going to share an idea. I'm going to prep for it and go, right? So think about what that one step will be. Now, coming to the last part, this is one of my favorite quotes, right? And so, as a product person, especially working with startups, when we get a product out the door, if I keep waiting to perfect it, what will happen? It will never get out and somebody else will get their product out, right? If you keep waiting to perfect yourself in a leadership role, somebody else is going to get that role, right? So progress over perfection. Always think of progress. So don't beat yourself up, right? Don't go into that victim mindset. Think about what is the progress I'm making. So as you take these steps towards developing, do a retrospective. You all are familiar with Agile. Every 2 weeks, do a retrospective in what steps did I take, what was the outcome, how do I do better next time, how do I do better next time, right? So I think, as a coach, I also think of myself as a product. How am I getting better at what I do every? And I said, like Namita told me, I said she's an extrovert, I'm not. But I set goals for myself in terms of putting myself out there. I set goals for myself in terms of what am I learning this quarter? What is something new I'm going to learn this quarter? So start setting up those goals, because nobody else is going to come do it for you, right? So you need to start doing this for yourself, right? So to get you started, now we talked about, I want to just say that prototyping, we said it's a way of iterative improvement, and you do retrospectives. Testing is about being adaptable. One of the most important qualities in leadership is adaptability. With every situation, you should be able to understand what leadership style should I show here. Empathy, you all said, is a great leadership quality. Can you be empathetic in every situation? Will it work for you? And it can come from a place of empathy, but assertiveness might be important in that time, right? So knowing when to show which one and are you able to flex it is what is important, right? So think about adaptability in terms of testing your leadership style in the way you take it forward. So I want you to take 2 minutes now, and with that, we are going to come to the end. But 3 steps, right? What is an immediate step you're going to take? So what is something that you can do next week when you go back to work? What is an intermediate goal? Next 3 to 6 months, right? And lastly, what is a long-term goal that you can start setting up for yourself, right? So do it in your own environment, how you might take it forward. Anybody, any Oh, 5 minutes. Okay. So sorry, I was rushing because time, and I know you guys have to leave as well. But any thoughts in terms of what is a step someone has decided to take? What is step one for you? Have a talk with my manager. Fantastic. So your name? Supriya. Yes, we know you already.
I'll have a meeting set up with my senior for the promotion.
Fantastic. What's your name?
Snigdha.
Snigdha is going to talk to her senior and discuss promotion paths. What else? Anybody else? Yeah, get into a mentor stage, right? Sometimes you have that discussion and the outcome is not very clear. So, how do you go back at it, right? Sometimes we have the discussion and then we keep waiting. Go back. It's your ask, you need to go back, right? So, think about these steps and how you might take them forward. Um, Baby steps is what we said in the beginning. I'm going to leave you with one word. It is a 3-letter word. Can you guess what it is? The power of? No, one more. No, one more. No. I'm going to give you the last letter. Yet, the power of yet. It is the most beautiful word in English language because I can't do this yet. So, if you're struggling with something, please start adding a yet to the end of it because that will help you shift your mindset. Everything starts here. If you tell yourself you can't do it, you can't do it. You're sending a signal to your brain, Janet can't do this. Shift that to I can't do this yet. Maybe one day you can. All right. Thank you very much, ladies. I want to get this from you. What is one word that comes to your mind now in terms of leadership? Sir, Sarvana, can you switch to the other one? I want you to take this code, go to menti.com and take that code or you can scan the QR code if you can. And think of what is one word that comes to mind when you think of your leadership journey. Are you excited? Are you nervous? Are you and the reason we are doing this is because I want to see how many people feel the same way here, right? Because sometimes we feel that we're alone in this journey, and how might we take it forward with each other? All right. Can we switch, Sarvan, and can you switch to the no, 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 not to the slide, to the alt tab, to just go to the browser, please.